Friendos, we have a fantastic video for each of you today. First and foremost, I have a giveaway coming up on my channel. I'm going to show you exactly what those prizes are and tell you how to enter. And for full details, you're going to want to look in the description area of this video so that you can get all the 411. And then I put it to a vote to see which brand you all would like to see featured in this story time and get ready with me. Now, this look right here will be completed with a combination of two of those brands that I mentioned before. We're going with Jeffree Star Cosmetics and Natasha Denona because the last time I checked, they were both tied. So no matter which brand is your favorite, there will be something for you. In just a moment, I'm going to start with my comical story time get ready with me. And I realize this one does involve wakes and funerals. I did do my best to keep this as light as possible. However, if you are not in the headspace where you want to hear the story because it is dealing with a wake, I get it. I'm going to introduce the contest. I'm going to tell you how to enter, and then I'll get into the story. You don't have to listen to it if you don't want to. And please don't if you're not feeling up to it. However, I think the majority of you will have a good time listening to it. It's really not that dark, so I hope you all enjoy. Friendos, just stay tuned. So guys, I did not have a Jeffree Star or Natasha Denona bronzer on hand, as I don't think they exist for either brand. So that's already down. I already have my eyebrows down. As far as I know, maybe Natasha does have an eyebrow pencil. I don't own it. That's done. So those two things are taken care of. What I really want to get into right now is showing you what those prizes are. So the theme of this giveaway is cheeky cheeky. We have a lot of really good products for you guys for your cheeks. So first off, we have the Supreme Frost Highlighter from Jeffree Star Cosmetics. This is in the shade Hypothermia. I'm not going to take this out because I don't want it to get damaged. Then we have the Secret Garden Blush and Glow palette. Ooh. And here's what she looks like inside. Very pretty peachy palette. Perfect for the new strawberry trend that is going around on TikTok. Then from Jeffree Star Cosmetics, we have the Ice Crusher Skin Frost Pro palette. I got this in one of my mystery boxes, and you'll know I don't really use highlighter like that, so it's going to one of you. And our last big ticket item is going to be the Ofra on the Glow palette. This is priced at over $140, which is pretty steep for Ofra, but you can see why. There's so many beautiful highlighters. You've got a blush in here as well. So one lucky winner will be winning all 4 items. So friendos, here's how you enter this giveaway. This is a shorts giveaway, meaning every time I post a short video here on YouTube, you have a chance to enter. All you need to do is leave a comment on any short video that I post on here between now, August 31st, and September the 8th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you get your comment up in the first hour, well, then your entry is going to count twice. Any other time, it's going to count 1 time. And you can leave any comment that you want. Please just make sure that you use actual words. So I hope that's simple enough. Now into my silly story and this get ready with me. So like I told you guys at the beginning, this story is pretty lighthearted, although it is taking place at a wake. To be honest, I'm a little bit desensitized to this topic because I come from a huge family. And to be honest, I have a lot of very old relatives, and I usually end up going to one of these things 4 or 5 times a year. So I'm going to try to make this as lighthearted as possible, and hopefully you all can enjoy it. So real quick, I do not have a bronzer or an eyebrow product from either Jeffree or Natasha. So those things are already done. I do have, however, a foundation from Natasha Denona. I don't particularly like it, so I think I'm going to go with something else today. Hope you guys don't mind. So the way this story begins, my sisters were going to go camping out at Tallulah Gorge in Georgia, and it was earlier this year. Now they wanted me to go, but I am not really a camper to start with, and plus, like I tell you guys, somebody's got to make some money around here. So I couldn't just abandon our company for 5 days to go camping. But I decided I would head down for at least 2 days just to catch up with my sister who lives in Florida, because, you know, we don't get to see her that often. So my parents are well aware that I'm planning to go there. But in the meantime, I have an uncle who's 90 years old, and the doctors haven't really said when he's going to pass, but we know that it's soon. And he's been in the state for a while. It seemed like he was getting worse, so I made sure that my parents knew to keep me up to date in case he were to pass away, so I could be there in time for the wake and the funeral. So my sisters are already there in Georgia, and I've gotten packed up and everything, and I wait till the very last minute to book my Airbnb. I let my mom know that I just booked my Airbnb, and she says to me,
"Well, you know, Uncle Marvin died this morning."
"No, Mom, I didn't know. I did not know that before I booked this Airbnb." It's like, "So when is the wake?" "Well, it's in 2 days. It's the day that I would be coming back." So I just decided I'm going to leave early to give myself enough time to get to the wake, and everything should be fine. So the devils we are, we all head down to Georgia. We have a really good time. And on the day when we're going to leave, I do try to leave out a little bit early. Now, my sister, on the other hand, has this huge, weird attraction to tourist spots. So she's making her boyfriend stop at every single place. Mind you, I'm driving separately from her. And they go to the hunting place. And they go to the peach place. And they go to the wildlife reserve. And they go to the rest stop. But I'm doing my best to get to this wake, y'all. I made the effort. So about halfway out, I asked my sister where she's at. And she says, "Oh." And my sister's like, "I'm in Asheville." And I'm like, "You're in Asheville?" I was like, "It took me through Charlotte." And she's like, "Well, it took me through Asheville. So one of us is going to make it there. The other one's not." We are both hitting traffic so hard. Also, guys, I'm trying out a new technique today. I may or may not have seen this in another short. So I'm the lucky duck who's going to make it 20 minutes before this wake is scheduled to be over. And I let my dad know. So my dad is super excited that I'm coming. Partially because my mom is just not the best person to have for serious moments in your life. So for example, this isn't even her uncle that's passed away. You know, it's a relative by marriage. And she still needed to bring a friend to the wake. So when I get there, my dad meets me outside. And for context, you guys, everyone loves my dad. He is one of the most likable people you will ever meet. Anytime I meet someone who knows my dad, they tell me how wonderful he is and how he's so funny and he's just the greatest guy. You know what? They're right. I'm very lucky to have my father as my dad. But my dad runs outside and he has this one arch nemesis. And this one arch nemesis is his adopted cousin, Bradley. So after my dad greets me, he says, "You won't believe it. Bradley's here." So I don't necessarily hate being around Bradley. I don't really like being around Bradley. I've never been the victim of an injustice by Bradley. However, no one in the family really likes Bradley. And to be honest, he's just kind of known for being scummy. And to be honest, it's weird that Bradley's there because my uncle that passed away hated Bradley. I brought up the fact that he's adopted because he looks nothing like anyone in the family. My dad and his brothers, his biological cousins, they are all massive men. They are super tall. They're very broad shoulders. All of them were high school football stars. They all went to the same small high school in the same small city. And that's where the wake is happening, is in this tiny little town where basically everybody knows everybody. And just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to give you a little bit of gossip of why everybody hates Bradley. So here's 3 things that I can think of right off the top of my head that I've heard from family members that he's done to them. So the first thing is he's a used car salesman, and he sold one of my other uncles a car for way too much money. My uncle literally went to him as a favor. He didn't even want to buy this car, but he felt bad because Bradley was posting on Facebook about how broke he is. Bradley also cheated on my cousin's mom, and he stole my dad's girlfriend, and my dad has never gotten over it. The way he went about it too, y'all, is really messed up. So that'll be for another video. I have quite a few of these awkward wake stories to share with you guys. And I have quite a few about Bradley. So anyways, I walk into the funeral home and I immediately see one of my favorite cousins. And I'm pretty excited because I haven't got to see him in probably 5 or 6 years. Isn't it kind of sad how sometimes it feels like the only time when you get to see your family is around funerals and wakes? It's sad. We should get together for happier times too. But I digress. So my dad escorts me over to my favorite cousin, Benjamin. I would equate it to that episode of SpongeBob where Patrick's parents come for a visit. And my dad says, "Laurel, do you remember your cousin?" I'm like, of course I do. And I kind of thrive on a little bit of sarcasm and cynicism. So I just respond back to my dad, "No, I have no idea who this is." Instead of everyone catching on to the fact that I'm being facetious, my sweet cousin Benjamin extends his arms and says, "Laurel, I'm your cousin Benjamin. I'm like, yes, Benjamin, I know who you are. He and I, when we were little, we had our birthday parties together some years. And like I said, it's been 5 or 6 years. It hasn't been 20 years or something, you know? So as I'm catching up with Benjamin, I'm sort of scouting the room, seeing who all is there. There's not a whole lot of time left because like I said, I got there 20 minutes before it's supposed to be over. I see my mom in the corner with her best friend looking sour. She's clearly pissed that I didn't arrive 2 hours ago, but this wasn't an uncle I was particularly close to, so I don't feel like I'm really in the wrong here by showing up 20 minutes before close. So yeah, she's looking sour. I see Bradley, his wife, who also happens to be my dad's ex-girlfriend, circling the funeral home, and she's checking all the arrangements. She's doing her own thing. And y'all, she's looking good. She is a woman who has done her upkeep, essentially Tommy Chong's wife. So imagine the world's sexiest grandma in a tight dress. I legitimately do not know how Bradley has secured this woman for so long. Because he's been married, I would say, five or six times. My dad pulls me aside and he tries to whisper. My dad's an old guy, he can't whisper. So he tells me, remember, Laurel, do not tell your mom that Pam is my ex-girlfriend because she'll get jealous. I'm like, well, Dad, I'm not going to say that to Mom, but maybe you just should lower your voice and let's just not talk about it right now so that someone else doesn't hear you and then go tell Mom. So as I'm having this weird, awkward conversation with my dad, this elderly woman comes in and she doesn't go towards the casket. No, she bolts right to my dad. And she says, Barry!
Oh, Barry!
Is that you? And I can tell my dad is racking his brain like, who is this woman? And she's like, it's me. It's Maggie. Don't you remember all those years ago? Your brother and your cousin invited me down to the lake with you and your mom and your dad. And I can see it starting to come back to my dad. And now my mom is finally starting to pay attention to what's happening in the room. And she continues very loudly. You were so sweet. You let us use your boat that day that we came down to the lake. It was me and my sister and you and Robert and Bradley. And you let Robert and Bradley use your brand new boat to take us out on the lake to give us a treat. And you are just the kindest, the nicest person. I never forgot it. And my dad, who's trying to be very diplomatic, says, oh, well, you're so welcome. We were so happy to have you that day. I do remember it now. But the way this woman is looking at my dad, she's looking at him like a fat kid looks at cake. And it's pretty funny because my dad does not look at all how he did 40 years ago. What hair he has left has all turned gray. He's not exactly skinny, but you would think Leonardo DiCaprio is standing in front of this woman. And she just keeps on, oh, Barry, where do you live? What have you been up to? Are you married? Stop! And again, you can just tell that my dad is just trying to be as polite as possible, but still he's trying to get away from this lady. Well, my mom is now super jealous and she's pissed. So she marches out of the funeral home and she takes her best friend Carol with her. Well, while she's berating my dad with all these questions, Bradley taps her on the shoulder with his little eating grin. And it's just so funny to see because my dad is so tall and he's this little shrimpy guy. So he taps on her shoulder and he goes, Maggie, it's been so long. And I don't know what he had done to this woman, but the way she looked at him. Oh, hi, Bradley. You would have thought someone just let all the air out of her balloon. So Bradley's just like, oh, thank you for coming. And as soon as Bradley starts talking to her, my dad basically takes off running. And he goes to the corner and he grabs me and then he decides to whisper who this woman is. So he starts telling me, one time we were supposed to go down to the lake house with Ma and Daddy, as in my grandparents. And Robert and Bradley invited these girls that they met at a bar. And these girls came along and they brought alcohol. And this is supposed to be a family day. And we're out on that boat. And the next thing I know, her and her sister have done taken their tops off in front of my mama and daddy.
In front of my mama and daddy.
So I told your mom and papa, we're gonna go fishing out on the dock. I'm just gonna let them use my new boat. And so they stayed gone with my new boat for 3 hours with these wild women. And I tell them, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure mom's pissed off now. She's like, I guess I'll just have to talk to her on the way home. As you guys can tell, she's a little bit insecure. So finally, this thing is about to be over, and I realize I have not signed the registration book. So it's at the back of this really long room. So I don't think anyone notices that I'm actually in this room. Everyone else is funneling out, and then I see Bradley's wife. So my dad walks up to her and he asks her, Pam, do you think it's okay if I just wear a long collared shirt, or do I need to wear a suit? And I'm not joking. This woman practically grabs my dad, and she's got a hold of his face, and she's just like, oh, Barry, you just wear whatever you want. You are so sweet. Thank God Bradley's not around. Thank God my mom's not around. My dad is doing his best to get her off of him. He's like, oh, thank you. I'll be there tomorrow. But she's got his face in like a grip. So my dad's trying to break the love spell as best he can. And he starts telling her, I think Sandy's gonna wear a black dress. Is that okay? And she's just not fazed at all. It's like my mom didn't exist. She's like, oh, Sandy's coming tomorrow? And my dad is like, yes, she's my wife. And then my dad, who's desperately looking for an out, looks over and he sees me, and I'm about to die laughing, y'all. I've never seen my dad in such a predicament. So then Pam sees me, and alas, she relinquishes my dad. And she says, okay, Barry, well, I'll see you tomorrow. So I walked up to my dad and I told him, I'm telling mom. So guys, that's pretty much it. That's my story. We tried to have a normal wake, but all these old ladies just came out of the woodwork and tried to make out with my dad. That's pretty much the point of the story. So there's been plenty more funny, awkward wakes and awkward funerals in my family because, I mean, we're all weird, clearly. I do find it pretty funny that Bradley's wife still has a thing for my dad after, 40 plus years. And see, her and Bradley, they have not been together all this time. They ended up splitting up, and then they recently got married. So if you guys want another funny story, Bradley's wedding is pretty funny. Okay, I'm gonna go do my liner and lashes off of camera, and I'll be right back to you guys. Well, obviously, my guys, I am back. So I'm gonna set my face with Jeffree Star powder. As far as matte powders are concerned, I think Jeffree has my absolute favorite formula. It's very finely milled. It smells so good, and it looks really light, but you could build it up to the point where it's almost a powder foundation if you really wanted to. I haven't used this in a while. I forgot how good it smells. Now, friendos, I want to hear from you. Do you have any awkward wake stories of your own? Have a mob of desperate grannies ever descended upon your dad? Let me know just how weird your family stories are. Okay, gonna finish off with Orgy. I'm gonna use this as my bronzer today. I should say my powder bronzer because I did already contour. Okay, gonna go in with Craving Chocolate. Also, have you guys seen Patrick Ta is releasing a palette? I've already snatched it up. She's supposed to be here on Friday, and I'm very excited for it. I really want to do some comparison swatches with this and Orgy just to see what's the same, because it, just like Orgy, is an all matte palette. There is supposed to be 2 cream shades in there, and I'm really curious to try those out. Again, I know that this is a safe color story, but I'm okay with it considering Patrick's never released a neutral palette before. His 2 other palettes have been very warm, and this one looks like a true neutral. Also, I'm not sure how I'm liking this trend where the blush color actually starts up on the brow bone and then comes down this way. I don't know. I know that that's the 1940s way of doing it. I'm just not sure it should come back in style. All right, let's get this lipstick on, and then I'm gonna let you guys get on with your day. Okay, going in Jeffree Star Cosmetics, the shade Calabasas. And then going in with the Supreme Gloss in the shade Fatality. Alright, my guys, that's today's look. I really hope that you all enjoyed my little story time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this entire time and watching all the way to the end. If you had a good time today, if you're excited about this upcoming contest, please don't hesitate to give this video a big like. I hope that you will subscribe if you have not done so already, because if not, we'll both have to live in the sorrow of never knowing what could have been. Alright guys, have a fabulous night. Bye.